The ballroom lights glinted off silverware like 100 small interrogations. Crystal chandeliers hummed above the crowd, all brass and shine and uniforms pressed so sharp they could cut. The air smelled like starch, bourbon, and the faint, soap-clean scent of new officers pretending they weren't terrified. It was supposed to be a night about her. Honoring the legacy of Colonel Maureen Marshall, the banner read, stretched across the front of the stage. Her photo, mid-laugh, fatigues on, hair pulled back, stood on an easel next to a tasteful explosion of white lilies. I stood near the back, dress blues straight, tie too tight, fingers wrapped around a sweating glass of club soda. My medals caught the light in ways that made strangers nod politely and say, "Thank you for your service, Captain." They didn't know the only thanks I wanted could never be spoken. Dead women don't answer. Mom had been gone a year. Sudden illness, rapid decline, rushed funeral. No time for questions. No answers, even if I'd found the time. The necklace was buried with her. I saw it. Silver chain, small oval pendant with a chipped blue stone. The back engraved with 3 words only I and she understood. Above blood, always. She'd worn it under her collar on every deployment. When I was 10, she'd caught me tracing it with one finger and whispered, "Legacy is stronger than blood, Elena. Remember that when the family forgets how to love you right." So when I saw it again, on someone else's neck, in this room, the world went out of focus. "Captain Marshall." The voice came from my 9 o'clock, deep and gravel smooth. The kind of voice that's commanded rooms and men and entire operations. I turned. General David Jensen, dress uniform immaculate, rows of ribbons like a bilingual story across his chest. He moved with the easy economy of a man who's been saluted for decades and still hasn't grown bored of earning it. And hanging against his black jacket, catching the chandelier light in a way I recognized in my bones, Mom's necklace. The same chain, same oval stone, same tiny scratch on the left side from the time she knocked it against the sink in our old house. It lay just below his throat, utterly out of place and exactly, terribly familiar. My hand tightened around the glass until ice cracked. "Sir," I managed. He watched my eyes, saw where they'd landed, and gave the smallest nod, like a man confirming a target. "I was wondering when you'd notice," he said quietly. My voice came out lower than I intended. "Where did you get that?" He reached up, thumb brushing the pendant with something like respect. "From your mother." My heartbeat stumbled. That's not possible. It was buried with her. He held my gaze for 3 terrible, stretching seconds. "No, Captain. It wasn't." The ballroom noise thinned behind us. Laughter and cutlery and toasts blurred into a low, indistinct roar. Someone on stage was reading a citation about Mom's service record, the sanitized version. I heard the words distinguished, trailblazer, sacrifice, all echoing off walls that didn't know what they were missing. The necklace glinted. I swallowed hard. "Sir, with respect, that necklace was placed in her casket. I saw it. I was there." "You saw what you were meant to see," Jensen said. "Not what she asked me to do." Anger sparked, sharp and bright. "She asked you to steal from her coffin?" His jaw worked, a flash of irritation, then something softer. "Sit with me, Marshall." "I'm fine here." His eyes flicked toward the corners of the room, then to a pair of officers whose casual posture didn't quite hide how closely they watched the crowd. "We're not going to do this standing in a corner like gossip. Come on." He didn't wait. He turned and started toward a side table near the wall, half in shadow but close enough to the stage to see everything. The kind of table you choose when you're used to monitoring terrain. I followed because I'd been trained, since birth, to obey rank. More than that, because that necklace had turned my blood into static. We sat. The tablecloth smelled faintly of detergent and spilled whiskey. A server passed, offered a tray of miniature crab cakes. The general waved him on. My stomach felt like it belonged to someone else. "I haven't spoken to my father in 3 years," I blurted, surprising even myself. "You wearing my mother's necklace. If this is some political stunt—" He held up a hand. The motion was small, practiced, absolute. "This is not about your father. Not tonight." I laughed once. It sounded like a cough. "Everything in that house was about him." "Not everything," Jensen said. Maureen made sure of that. Hearing him say her name, first name, not rank, knocked something loose in me. They'd served together, I knew that much. I'd seen him at our house twice when I was a teenager, back when Mom still came home between deployments and Dad still pretended her uniform didn't bother him. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "I owe you something." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim, worn notebook. The binding was reinforced with duct tape. The pages inside bulged slightly, like they'd been wet once and dried. On the front cover, in Mom's handwriting, the sharp, decisive strokes I'd recognize anywhere, was one word: rain. He slid it across to me. My breath stalled. I picked it up, thumb grazing the edge. The paper was warm from his pocket. "What is this?" I whispered. "Your mother's diary from her last assignment," he said. "She gave it to me before she died, along with this." He touched the necklace again. "She asked me to keep them until you were ready." "Ready for what?" My voice burned. "To know the rest of the story," he said simply. "The one the funeral didn't tell. The one the plaque on that wall won't mention." His gaze cut briefly toward the display of her medals and a framed black and white photo. "The one she didn't trust your father with." A sour knot twisted in my gut at the mention of Dad. Edward Marshall, former logistics officer, professional resenter of anyone more decorated than him. He'd worn his grief for Mom like a costume, then tried to control every inch of her funeral like he controlled everything else. I clutched the notebook. She kept a diary? She never wrote like this at home. "She never wrote like this for home," Jensen corrected. "This was for contingency. For truth, in case truth needed teeth." I flipped to the first page. Her voice greeted me in ink. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the quiet exit I wanted. Figures. Nothing about my life has been quiet, least of all the things I've had to bury." The letters blurred. I blinked hard. "The hell is Operation Rainfall?" I asked, noticing the phrase underlined halfway down the page. "That's the part she wanted you to see last," Jensen said. "Start from the beginning, and don't do it here." "Why not?" He scanned the room again. The banquet was shifting into its next phase, a major at the podium reading from prepared remarks, a slideshow of Mom's career beginning to flicker against the far wall. Photos of her saluting, leading, smiling in uniform. A sanitized epic. "Because some of the names in that book are sitting in this room," Jensen said. "And because your mother knew some secrets can't be whispered over rubber chicken and applause." Something inside me snapped from grief into purpose. "You said the necklace was from her," I said slowly. "Explain that." He unclasped it, not dramatically, just with the efficiency of a man disarming a device. He laid it on the table between us, the chain pooling like a thin river, the pendant catching the overhead light. "She gave it to me." His voice dropped. "In the embassy's stairwell. 30 minutes after she saved my life, and 30 hours before the doctor told her she was out of time." The room spun slightly at the edges. "What embassy?" He smiled faintly, without humor. "The one where the official report says she was never present. Operation Codename Rainfall." The word snagged with the cover. Rain. I traced the back of the pendant with my thumb. The engraving was still there. Above blood, always. My throat closed. She said, Jensen continued, eyes far away now, that you'd need it when the truth hurt more than the lies. That you'd understand someday what legacy really meant. A laugh scraped out of me. You expect me to believe any of this? No, he said. I expect you to read the diary, and then decide who to confront first. First, he met my gaze. Your father, he said. Or the half-sibling your mother left everything for. The words hit like a round to the chest, silent impact, delayed devastation. Half-sibling, I repeated, numb. She trusted me with the necklace, Jensen said. But she left the rest to you, and to someone named Evelyn Carter. The name meant nothing, and somehow, it meant the end of everything I thought I knew about my family. The slideshow on the far wall reached a photo of Mom holding me as a baby, her uniform jacket hanging open, my tiny hand tangled in that same necklace. The room applauded. I sat in the back, with her diary in my hands and the truth around my neck, and realized this banquet wasn't honoring her legacy. It was introducing me to it. And whatever Operation Rainfall had started, I was clearly meant to finish. Long before a general walked into a banquet wearing my mother's necklace, the Marshall household had already taught me that truth comes in layers, some worn openly, some stitched into silence. Our home in Fayetteville always felt like two different houses, depending on who was speaking. When Mom talked, the rooms felt wide and breathable. When Dad talked, walls seemed to move closer by an inch. Mom was a colonel who carried her authority like a steady lantern, bright enough to guide, never bright enough to blind. She spent half her life in conflict zones, but left gentleness wherever she went. Even her reprimands felt like lessons carved from mercy. She'd take off her boots at the door and walk barefoot through the kitchen, humming off-key jazz, the scent of cloves and field dust clinging to her uniform. Dad was a different kind of officer. Logistics, rules, budgets, everything tidy except his expectations. He loved Mom, in the way men sometimes love women who shine brighter than they planned for. He loved me too, but his love was heavier, shaped like pressure, not warmth. We looked like a perfect family on the outside. Framed photos, crisp lawns, patriotic holidays. But inside, my mother's secrets and my father's resentment simmered quietly, polite, but unresolved. Legacy, she used to say, is stronger than blood. I didn't understand she meant mine might come from a different branch entirely. The necklace entered my life before memory did. Mom wore it constantly, the tiny blue stone resting at the base of her throat like a compass that only she could read. I'd reach for it as a toddler, and she'd let me tug until her skin reddened. Dad always scolded me. Elena, don't break your mother's things. She always smiled. If she breaks it, it means it survived love. That's what matters. On nights before deployment, she'd kneel beside my bed, the lamp casting copper light on her face, and lift the pendant so it dangled between us. This, she'd say, voice low and warm, reminds me who I am when the world tries to tell me otherwise. When I turned 14 and overheard my parents arguing over a letter written in handwriting I didn't recognize, she hugged me later in the hallway and whispered, "Legacy is stronger than blood, sweetheart." I assumed she meant discipline, honor, service. I never guessed she meant lineage. When she fell ill, it happened fast, like God changed the script halfway through rehearsal. One month she was jogging at dawn. The next, she was too weak to climb the stairs. The illness didn't have a name that made sense. Aggressive, the doctor said. Unpredictable, they said. Terminal, they whispered when they thought I wasn't listening. She'd sit on the porch wrapped in a blanket, eyes following birds across the sky like they were carrying messages she wished she could send. One night, she handed me the necklace. Just pressed it into my palm without ceremony, her fingers trembling. "Keep it," she said. I tried to give it back, panicked, confused, but she closed my fist around it. "You'll need it someday." Not for grief. A pause, deep and aware. For truth. I didn't understand. I thought her mind was slipping, that she was preparing me for her death. I didn't know she was preparing me for a story that hadn't surfaced yet. 2 days before she passed, she asked for Dad. They spoke behind a closed door. Low tones, sharp edges, no crying. When Dad came out, he looked like a man broken in places he didn't know existed. Mom died 2 nights later, her hand in mine, her breath fading like a tide pulling back from shore. At the funeral, Dad insisted on placing the necklace in her casket. I protested weakly, but grief had gutted my voice. He held it up once, glinting in the chapel lights, before lowering it onto her chest. "It's hers," he said. "It belongs with her." Those words felt final, like a stone thrown into deep water. I watched the lid close, watched the earth cover her, watched the necklace disappear forever. Or so I believed. After she died, everything between Dad and me unraveled. Maybe we'd both been held together by her gravity. Without her, the house spun wrong. He grew quiet and brittle, like a man inside armor too tight. The more I tried to talk to him, the more he snapped at nothing, at dishes, at clocks, at the weather, at me. One fight cut cleaner than the others. He accused me of siding with her secrets. I accused him of controlling the funeral, controlling her memory, controlling everything he didn't understand. Words flew, sharp ones. Finally, he said, "You were always closer to her than to me. Maybe that's why she left so much unsaid." I didn't speak to him for 3 years after that. Not out of spite, out of exhaustion. Some wounds are too quiet to notice until you poke them. I kept Mom's medals in a drawer, kept her photograph near the bookshelf. But the necklace, her heartbeat, her history, her invisible story, was gone. Which is why, standing in that banquet hall years later, seeing it hanging from the neck of General Jensen, a man she trusted more than she ever trusted my father, made the air hollow in my lungs. Something wasn't adding up. Something big. Mom didn't give things away without reason. She didn't hide things without purpose. If she let Jensen keep the necklace, it wasn't a borrowed keepsake. It was a message I hadn't been ready to decipher. The diary Jensen gave me, Rain, felt alive in my hands. Each page carried the weight of something concealed, something unfinished. I held it in the banquet hall, the chandelier glare reflecting off the cover like a dare. My mother had been more than the leader they honored her as. More than the woman Dad held onto too tightly. More than the mother who whispered riddles about legacy into my childhood. She'd left me a trail, a necklace, a diary, a phrase. Legacy is stronger than blood. A truth. Someone named Evelyn Carter. That night at the banquet, I realized I hadn't just attended an event for her memory. I'd stepped into the first chapter of the story she'd meant for me to finish. And whatever Operation Rainfall was, it wasn't done with us yet. Back at my apartment that night, the diary felt heavier than its size justified, as if it held gravity instead of paper. Rain tapped the balcony railing like a code I hadn't learned yet. The city lights bled through the blinds in fractured stripes across the living room. I set the diary on the table, next to my untouched dinner, and just looked at it. The cover, Rain, seemed to breathe. Or maybe I did, too fast, too shallow. Mom's handwriting had always been a kind of compass. Sharp angles, decisive loops, the script of a woman who didn't waste ink on anything but truth. Seeing it now, when I thought everything about her had been sealed underground. Felt like I'd opened a door to a room I didn't know existed in my own house. I sat. I opened the diary. The first pages were the usual operational fragments, dates, coded references, clipped notes about meetings and movements. Nothing emotional, nothing revealing. Just practical documentation from a soldier who lived her life organized enough to survive it. But then, halfway down a page, a sentence broke the rhythm. If anything happens to me, the necklace goes to Jensen. The truth goes to Elena. The guilt goes to Edward. I felt the air change in my lungs. I flipped to the next entry. Her voice sharpened. Operation Rainfall escalates tonight. I'm prepared for fallout, but Edward isn't. He still believes blood defines loyalty. It doesn't. Legacy does. I ran a thumb over the ink, feeling the indentation of her pressure. She'd written those words in a hurry, or with conviction, or both. I kept reading. Reference after reference. Rainfall isn't clean. 2 names compromised. EC must be protected if things go wrong. Edward cannot know. Not yet. Not like this. EC. The name echoed. Evelyn Carter. The half-sibling General Jensen had mentioned. I leaned back, heartbeat shaking my ribs. A half-sister I never knew existed. A person Mom had protected. A person Dad had, if Jensen was to be believed, tried to erase from her final will. A knot of anger, confusion, awe, and betrayal twisted hard in my chest. Why didn't Mom tell me? Why did Dad hide it? Why was a general wearing her necklace? And what the hell was Operation Rainfall? The diary wasn't finished answering. Not by a long shot. Near the end of the first section, I found the page that detonated everything. If my illness takes me before Rainfall resolves, Jensen will deliver the necklace. Elena will find the rest. When she does, she'll understand why blood isn't enough, and why I couldn't tell her the truth without endangering her. Blood isn't enough. Those words bit deeper now. I pressed my palms into the table, grounding myself. The apartment hummed faintly with the refrigerator motor, the tick of the wall clock, the shifting weight of unanswered questions. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. For a moment, I froze, half expecting Mom's voice, half fearing it. Then I answered. Elena Marshall, I said. A familiar gravel rolled through the speaker. You started reading. General Jensen. Yes, I said tightly. You knew I would. That was the plan. I have questions. I know, he said, but not on the phone. Suspicion flared. You think I'm being monitored? I think Rainfall never really ended, he said. And I think your mother's diary has names in it that would make certain people nervous. A shiver climbed my spine. You're telling me I'm in danger? I'm telling you Maureen planned for this moment, he replied. And she trusted only 2 people to finish what she started. Who? You, he said, and Evelyn. My pulse slammed. She's real? Evelyn is real? Yes. Then why? Because Edward filed a petition to seal her identity before your mother died. Jensen cut in. He wanted everything to go through him. The medals, the estate, the narrative. Why? Grief, he said. Jealousy, fear, maybe all 3. I pressed my fingers to my temple. Where is Evelyn now? I'll take you to her, he said. But you need to be sure. Sure about what? That you want the truth, he said. Once you hear it, you won't get your old life back. Rain hit the window harder, blurring the view. Outside, headlights streaked past like brief ghosts. My mother wanted me to know, I said. I'm sure. Jensen exhaled, a sound of relief mixed with resignation. Then meet me at Fort Ashbourne tomorrow. 0900. Bring the diary. That's it? And Elena, yes? Don't tell your father. My jaw tensed. He's my father. I'm allowed to ask questions. He's also the man who tried to bury the truth alongside your mother, Jensen said quietly. Be careful. The call ended. I lowered the phone slowly, my hand trembling without permission. Fort Ashbourne. Evelyn Carter. Operation Rainfall. The necklace. The diary. My father. Everything entwined like a web I'd never seen but had apparently lived inside my entire life. The room felt smaller, my breath louder. The necklace's absence at my mother's funeral suddenly reframed. She hadn't wanted it with her. She wanted it carried forward. I looked down at the diary, a life's worth of truths sitting on my cheap wooden table. I closed it gently, almost reverently. Then I said it out loud, something I hadn't said in a year, something that felt like the beginning of an oath. Okay, Mom. I'm listening. Fort Ashbourne sat just outside the city, half military installation, half forgotten relic. Chain-link fences hummed with early morning wind, and the parking lot was littered with pine needles and last night's rain. Fog rolled low across the asphalt like it had been waiting for me. I stepped out of my truck at 8:59. General Jensen was already there. He leaned against a government sedan, hands folded behind his back, his posture relaxed only in the way men who've survived too much know how to pretend. The necklace, my mother's necklace, glinted faintly over the collar of his jacket. You're punctual, he said. You told me this was important. It is. He motioned toward the gate. Follow me. We walked through a personnel entrance guarded by an MP who barely glanced at my ID before snapping to attention for the general. The steel door buzzed open. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and memory. Sterile spaces always reminded me of the hospital where my mother spent her last nights. You slept at all? Jensen asked. No. Good. You'll need clarity, not comfort. He had a way of making worry sound like strategy. We reached a small conference room, their table, 2 chairs, 1 window that didn't open. He closed the door behind us. Before I show you anything, he began, I need to ask you a question. Ask? When your mother said, legacy is stronger than blood, what did you think she meant? I thought she meant honor, I said. Service. Duty. He shook his head slowly. Not quite. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a slim folder, then placed it on the table facing me. Open it. Inside were 3 documents. The first, a birth certificate. The second, a hospital intake form from 28 years ago. The third, a sealed envelope with Maureen Marshall's signature across the flap. My throat tightened. That birth certificate, Jensen said quietly, belongs to Evelyn Carter. And she's my sister. He nodded. Yes. Same mother? Yes. Different father? His silence was answer enough. A strange, twisting ache formed inside my ribs. Shock, betrayal, awe, loss, and something sharper. Almost like relief at understanding at least one of the missing pieces. She was born before you, Jensen continued. Your mother was young, scared, and under pressure she never explained to me. She kept Evelyn with family friends for the first years. Later, adoption. A closed one. Dad didn't know? He knew eventually. Jensen's voice hardened. He just didn't want anyone else to. The ache inside me sharpened. I braced both hands on the table.
Why hide a daughter? Why hide this from me? Your mother didn't hide Evelyn out of shame, he said. She hid her out of protection. Rainfall involved names that could have made Evelyn a target. And me? I asked. He studied me for a moment. Rainfall put a target on you, too.
Your mother spent years keeping it off your back. I swallowed hard. What was rainfall, exactly? Jensen hesitated, then answered, a covert extraction program gone wrong. Civilians compromised. 2 officers betrayed their own unit for money and influence. Your mother tried to expose it quietly. She didn't know how wide the rot reached. And my father? His jaw clenched. Edward wasn't part of the rot, but he feared the consequences. He thought the truth would destroy everything he'd built. So he chose secrecy over honesty. And Mom? I asked. Did she forgive him? She forgave everyone, Jensen said softly. That was her flaw and her brilliance. Rain pressed lightly against the window, slow and rhythmic. My pulse followed it. I looked at the sealed envelope. What's in this? She wrote it for you, Jensen said, and left instructions with me. What instructions? Not to open it until after you met Evelyn. The name still felt foreign on my tongue. A sister. A woman who shared my mother's blood. A stranger with the same legacy stitched into her DNA. Where is she? I whispered. Jensen took a step back from the table, giving me space, then answered with the calm certainty of a man delivering coordinates. In Denver. Denver? I repeated, dazed. She works as a community counselor, he added, helps military kids. She never knew why she felt drawn to that world until she read a letter from your mother last year. A letter? She got her own envelope, Jensen said. Same handwriting, same truth. Maureen wrote 2 goodbyes and left them on 2 different paths, hoping someday those paths would cross. My eyes stung unexpectedly. Jensen's tone softened. Elena, your mother kept you apart to keep you safe. She planned for a reunion one day. She just didn't plan to leave so soon. I rubbed my palm across my mouth, trying to steady the shake in my breath. I need to meet her. He nodded once. I'll take you. The drive to Denver blurred through a haze of rain and revelations. Jensen didn't talk much, which I appreciated. Silence was easier to carry when you weren't shouldering it alone. We pulled up to a modest 2-story community center painted soft yellow. Kids' drawings were taped to the windows. A wind chime clicked lazily under the awning. Jensen parked but didn't get out. She's inside, he said. Room 14. I reached for the door, but he touched my arm lightly. She looks like Maureen, he said. Prepare yourself. I nodded once, swallowing the gravity of that. Walking down the hallway felt like moving through someone else's life. The walls were lined with photos of volunteers, plaques, motivational slogans in cheerful fonts I couldn't absorb. Room 14's door was half open. I knocked softly. A woman's voice called, "Come in!" I stepped inside. She stood by a small, round table, sorting donation forms. Mid-30s, black hair pulled back in a loose braid. Eyes, God, eyes nearly identical to my mother's. Warm, sharp, weary and gentle at the same time. She looked up and froze. I could tell the second she recognized the resemblance too, hers and mine. "Elena?" she whispered, voice cracking before she even knew why. I nodded, throat too tight for words. "I'm Evelyn," she said, stepping forward. I forced breath into my lungs. "I know." We stood there,
Two strangers made from the same woman, the air between us trembling like something sacred. "You look like her," she said. "You do too." Her eyes glistened. "She wrote me a letter last year. Told me I had a sister. Told me she hoped you'd come." I swallowed. "She wrote me one too. I just haven't read it yet." Evelyn took a shaky breath. "Did she explain why?" "Not completely," I said. "But I'm starting to understand." She nodded slowly. "I always felt like part of me was missing. I just didn't know it had a name." A laugh broke through my throat, strangled and aching.
Same. We stood in silence that didn't feel like silence at all. It felt like returning. She touched her necklace, a small charm shaped like a leaf. Ordinary, but worn with meaning. "Do you have anything of hers?" she asked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the diary. "And there's something else," I said. "Jensen has it." Her eyes widened when she understood. "The necklace." I nodded. "I thought she was buried with it." "She wasn't," Evelyn whispered. "She wrote that it belonged with her daughters." Daughters. Plural. Finally spoken aloud. A warmth spread through my chest, painful and beautiful at the same time. "How do we do this?" I asked softly. "You and me?" She smiled, small, trembling, determined. "We start by not letting our father ruin it." I barked out a laugh. "You know about him already?" "Mom warned me." "Yeah," I said. "She warned me, too." The room felt like a bridge being built plank by plank, sturdy enough to hold the weight of everything ahead. Evelyn extended her hand. "Come on, Elena. Let's read Mom's truth together." I took it. Her grip was warm. Outside, rain eased into a gentler rhythm, less like warning, more like permission. We drove to the Marshall family home in silence. Not the cold silence we'd both grown up under. This one hummed with preparation, like the held breath before a storm makes landfall. Thunderclouds moved low across the sky, their underbellies bruised purple. The kind of sky that warns you things are about to change in ways you can't undo. Evelyn sat beside me in Jensen's car, hands clasped around the diary like it was the only buoy in an unpredictable sea. She kept brushing her thumb over the duct-taped spine, absorbing every trace of our mother she could. Jensen drove ahead in his sedan. His presence didn't feel like escort. It felt like reinforcement. As we pulled into the driveway, the house stood exactly as I remembered. White porch, trimmed hedges, the flag Dad never let fade. A monument to order. A museum of denial. Evelyn inhaled sharply. "This is it?" "This is it," I said, shutting off the engine. "It feels..." She searched for words. "Like a place where truth gets stored in locked drawers." I huffed a humorless laugh. "You're not wrong." Thunder groaned overhead. We approached the porch. Before I could knock, the door opened. Dad stood there like he had been waiting, not for me, but for something inevitable. Something he'd hoped would never reach him. His eyes landed on me first, then on Evelyn. A flicker of recognition, then disbelief, then fear. "Elena." His voice stumbled. Why is she?" "Dad," I said, stepping forward. "Meet Evelyn." He looked at her like she'd stepped out of a photograph he'd tried to burn. Evelyn held her ground, shoulders squared, chin high. The same posture Mom used when preparing to speak hard truth. Dad's throat bobbed. "You shouldn't be here." "That's not your decision," she said quietly.
His face flushed. It absolutely is. You... He stopped himself, looked at me. Elena, you shouldn't have brought her. Mom brought her, I said. We're just catching up. He flinched like I'd struck him. Jensen stepped up behind us, voice level and unshakably calm. Edward, we're coming inside. There's no use closing the door on something Maureen opened. Dad's jaw clenched, but he stepped back. We entered the house. The smell hit me first. Lemons, old wood, memory. Mom's favorite candle scent still clung to the air, faint but persistent. Evelyn inhaled it and shivered, the scent of a mother she never knew but clearly remembered somewhere deep in her bones. Dad shut the door with a quiet, controlled click. This is not necessary, he said stiffly. We can discuss things privately, without outsiders. Jensen folded his arms. I'm not an outsider, and Evelyn is not a secret. Dad's shoulders tensed. We stepped into the living room. The coffee table was neat, the books arranged with military precision. And next to the framed photos, my graduations,
Mom's promotions, sat a decorative box I hadn't noticed before. The box where Dad kept the will. The one Mom supposedly never changed. Evelyn saw it too. Her eyes sharpened. Dad, I said, keeping my voice steady. We're here to talk. That's all. You came here to ambush me, he snapped. No, I said. We came for answers. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice soft but razor precise. I just want to know why. Dad blinked. Why what? Why she couldn't tell me. Why she couldn't tell Elena. Why you tried to bury all of it. For a moment, Dad looked genuinely wounded, then exhausted, then fragile. He sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, rubbing his forehead. I didn't bury it, he whispered. I tried to protect it. Protect what? I asked. Your pride? He looked up sharply. Lightning flashed outside, throwing a harsh glow across his features. My family, he said. I was trying to protect my family. Evelyn sank onto the armchair opposite him. I am your family. The word shattered something in him. No, he said quickly, too quickly. No, you're not. You were... He stopped, exhaled. You were her secret. And your shame, Evelyn said quietly. Dad's posture caved. No. Then what? I asked. Tell us. Rain hammered the windows now, heavy and insistent. He covered his face with both hands. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded scraped raw. She had you before I met her, he said to Evelyn. She told me the truth early on. I said I could accept it. I even thought I meant it. He looked at me. But when Elena was born, everything changed. I didn't want complications. I didn't want anything threatening the family I thought we could build. Threatening? Evelyn repeated, a tremor in her voice. Dad shook his head, regret etched into every line of his face. Not you. Never you. I was afraid of what people would think. And that mattered more than what Mom needed? I said. His silence confirmed everything. She told me she'd written you into her will, he continued. That she'd written both of you in. But her mind was failing near the end. I thought she wasn't thinking clearly. I felt my pulse ignite with anger. You thought dying made her unfit to decide her own legacy? Dad flinched. I panicked, Elena. No, I said. You chose. The truth hung heavy between us.
Evelyn reached into the diary, pulling out the sealed envelope. She held it up like a mirror. "She wanted us to read this together," she said. "And you tried to keep it from happening." Dad swallowed hard. "I didn't think you'd ever find each other." "But she did," Evelyn said. Dad's shoulders dropped. "I know." He stared at us, both of us, as if seeing twin ghosts of the woman he'd loved and failed in different ways. Jensen stepped forward finally, his voice steel-wrapped compassion. "Edward, Maureen never meant for her children to be enemies. She wrote those letters because she hoped this moment would happen, not to punish you, to complete the family she loved." Dad's eyes glowed with tears he didn't bother hiding. "I miss her," he whispered. "Every damn day." "So do we," I said. The room fell quiet. Outside, thunder rumbled like distant artillery. Then Evelyn unfolded the envelope. Her hands shook. My breath froze. Dad's eyes fixed on it with dread. Jensen stood like a sentinel. She pulled out the letter, thin paper, Mom's handwriting unmistakable. "Read it," I said softly. Evelyn nodded and began. "My dearest children. Yes, children. Both of you." Her voice broke. I stepped beside her and placed a hand on the page, steadying it. "If you are reading this, then I am gone, and the truth I carried is now yours to carry forward. One truth above all. Legacy is stronger than blood. But blood deserves truth." Evelyn's voice wavered. "Elena, my daughter, you were my anchor, my courage, my hope that the Marshall name would mean honor. I hid Evelyn not from you, but for you." My breath hitched.
Sharp and involuntary. Evelyn, my daughter. You were my first heartbeat. My reminder that motherhood doesn't require perfection, only love. I loved you in silence because silence was the safest way to love you. Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. I know this truth hurts, but the hurt is temporary. The legacy is forever. Find each other. Build the family I couldn't. Forgive your father, even if it takes time. And wear the necklace together, because it was never meant to be buried. It was meant to be passed forward. The last line dissolved into tear-stained ink. Evelyn folded the letter against her chest. I bowed my head. Dad sobbed once, a small, broken sound that cracked open years of resentment and confusion and grief. He whispered, "I'm sorry." Then again, louder, "I'm so damn sorry." Not defensive, not strategic, not rehearsed. Just a man drowning in truth. Evelyn approached him first. She knelt, took his shaking hand. "I'm not here to replace your daughter," she said. "I'm here because she wanted us to find each other." He cried harder. I knelt beside them. A triangle formed, 3 people connected by a woman who refused to let her family shatter. Jensen stepped forward, the guardian at the doorway of this moment, and placed the necklace gently into my palm. "It's time," he said. I looked at Evelyn. She nodded. Together, we wrapped the chain around our hands, the pendant resting between both of our palms, warm and pulsing like a heartbeat that had never actually stopped. Mom wasn't gone. She had just been waiting for us to arrive at this moment. The room felt full of her, full of the legacy she built, not the silence she endured. Lightning flashed again, but this time it didn't feel threatening. It felt like a promise. The rain eased into a mist by the time we reached Greenwood Military Cemetery.
Gray stones rose from the earth in disciplined lines, each one carrying a piece of someone's unfinished story. The ground smelled like wet grass and iron.
The air carried that soft, metallic cold that settles around military gravesites, as if the earth remembers every folded flag ever pressed into grieving hands. We walked together, Evelyn, Jensen, Dad, and me. A strange formation, uneven but intact. No ranks, no roles, just people carrying remnants of the same woman. Mom's headstone stood beneath a maple tree, its leaves dripping with rain. The inscription was simple. Personal Maureen Marshall. Beloved mother. Soldier. Truth-bearer. Legacy is stronger than blood. Someone, probably Dad, had left fresh lilies. Their petals drooped with water. Evelyn approached the grave first. She stood still, shoulders trembling, hands clutching the edges of her coat as if she wasn't sure where to place them. Then she knelt, not with ceremony, but with an instinct older than either of us could name. "Hi," she whispered, voice cracking. "I'm here, Mom." The words hit me like a blow to the chest, raw, simple, devastating. I knelt beside her, my breath pooling white in the cold air. "Me too," I said. Dad stopped a few feet back, guilt rooting him in place. Jensen stood the farthest, head bowed slightly. Evelyn placed the letter on the base of the stone. The paper fluttered in the breeze but held firm. "She told us to build the family she couldn't," she said. "So, I'm going to try." My throat tightened. Me too. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a handkerchief, one of Mom's old field tags that Jensen had returned to her weeks earlier. She placed it next to the letter. "I want you to have all of us," she said softly. I felt my breath hitch again. It was time. I unwrapped the necklace from around my hand. Rain dotted the blue stone. The engraving on the back, "Above blood always," glimmered faintly. I held it between us. "Mom didn't want this buried," I said. "She wanted it shared." Evelyn looked at me through tears. "Then share it." Her fingers met mine around the pendant. The necklace hung between our hands, swinging slightly in the gentle wind, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again. Dad moved closer. His voice was nothing more than a rasp. "She deserved better from me," he whispered. Jensen stepped forward, not interfering, but anchoring. "She loved you, Edward, even when you didn't know how to love her back." Dad bowed his head. "I never hated her secrets. I hated that I wasn't brave enough to face them." Evelyn straightened, wiped her eyes, then did something unexpected. She stood, walked to Dad, and wrapped her arms around him. He froze at first, caught between shock and grief, then slowly, awkwardly, held her. The sound that broke from him was the kind of grief that only comes after years of refusing to cry. When they stepped apart, Dad touched her cheek gently. "You're my daughter too," he said, terrified he'd said it too late. "You always were." She nodded. "I know." A single cold breeze swept over us, rattling the maple leaves overhead. It felt like the earth letting out a long-held breath. I stepped closer to Dad, unsure if the world could hold one more fragile moment. He reached out first and laid a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Elena," he said, voice shaking. "For everything I kept from you. Everything I wished away instead of facing." I nodded slowly. "I'm not ready to forgive you today," I said. His eyes flickered with pain, but understanding too. "But I'm ready to try," I added. His shoulders trembled in relief. Evelyn and I turned back to the headstone.
Jensen took a respectful step back, letting us hold the center. "Mom," I said, "we found each other, just like you wanted." "And we're not running," Evelyn added. "Not from truth, not from legacy." I unclasped the necklace and laid it at the base of the stone. Not as surrender, as offering, as anchor. Evelyn placed the diary beside it, the pages sealed again with its leather tie. For a moment, none of us moved. The maple tree rustled overhead, and droplets fell onto the grave, soft, rhythmic,
almost like approval. Jensen finally stepped forward. "Maureen would be proud," he said quietly. "Of both of you, of all three of you." Dad wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I don't deserve her pride." "Then earn it now," Jensen replied. We stood in a loose circle, broken lines reconnected by the woman beneath the earth. Her story didn't end here. It just turned its final page. Evelyn took my hand. "We move forward?" she asked. I nodded. "Together." Behind us, Dad exhaled shakily, like a man taking his first full breath in decades. Jensen placed one firm, steady hand on my shoulder. "The hard part is over," he said. "The true part begins now." Life didn't snap neatly back into place after that day at the cemetery. Truth never resets a family. It rearranges it. But for the first time in decades, the rearranging felt like rebuilding rather than collapsing. Evelyn and I met every Sunday, sometimes in Denver, sometimes at the old Marshall home if Dad felt brave enough to face the shifting ground under his own history. Jensen visited often, not as a general, not as an overseer, but as the quiet guardian of Mom's final wish. And Mom's necklace? We didn't wear it, not yet. Instead, we split caretaking duties. 1 month with her, 1 month with me. 1 month with neither of us, resting in the case we bought together, a wooden box with clean lines and a velvet interior. We engraved the lid with a single phrase: "Forgiveness, 2025. Not because forgiveness was complete, but because forgiveness had begun. Dad changed too, but quietly, cautiously, like a man relearning how to hold something delicate after years of gripping everything too hard. He started by visiting Mom's grave every Friday, leaving lilies, then switching to wildflowers, the ones she used to pick behind the kitchen fence. He apologized to Evelyn in fragments. He apologized to me in moments. He apologized to himself by finally telling the truth. "I was jealous of her strength," he admitted during one of our Sunday dinners. "I thought if I controlled everything else, I wouldn't have to face the parts of myself that weren't worthy of her." I believed him. Not fully, but enough. Healing is rarely a single moment. It's a series of choices. And Dad was choosing. The scholarship came next. Evelyn and I stood together at the podium in a mid-sized auditorium, military families, reporters, veterans, and community members filling the seats. Behind us hung a banner, the Maureen Marshall Legacy Fund, supporting children of estranged military families. Dad sat in the front row, Jensen beside him, both men sitting straighter than their health or age suggested. I stepped up to the microphone first. "My mother believed legacy wasn't what you inherited. It was what you created, even in silence." I paused, scanning the room. Faces softened, hands folded. The kind of silence that waits for truth. "She carried secrets not to deceive us," I continued, "but to protect the people she loved. My sister and I were separated by circumstance. Today, we stand here united by choice." Evelyn stepped beside me, speaking with a quiet strength that made the room lean forward. "We are not defined by the mistakes that broke us," she said. "We are defined by the courage it takes to rebuild." The crowd stood, one steady rise of bodies and breath, A recognition not of rank, not of heroism, but of truth reclaimed. For the first time, Evelyn and I didn't look like strangers bound by circumstance. We looked like siblings bound by legacy. Mom would have loved that moment. She would have said something simple like, "Good, keep going." That night, back at the house, I found Dad in Mom's old study, a place he never entered after she died. Dust covered the shelves. Her military certificates hung crooked. Her favorite books slumped against each other, their spines faded by sun. He sat in her old chair, holding the necklace. He didn't wear it, he just held it. "She wanted you to have this," he said softly as I stepped inside. "She wanted both of us to share it," I corrected gently. He nodded. "Then promise me something." "What?" "When you and Evelyn are ready, wear it at the family reunion. All of us. Together." I sat across from him. The room smelled like old paper and lavender, Mom's scent, still lingering in the curtains. "I'll wear it," I said. "But only if you come too." Dad's smile cracked open like a wound stitched too tight. "I'll be there." I believed him this time. A month later, in my apartment, sunlight poured across the table where the wooden case sat. The necklace rested inside, the blue stone warm as if remembering every hand that had touched it. I lifted it gently, letting the chain pool across my fingers. So much had been buried beside her. So much had been uncovered since. Evelyn texted, "You ready for tomorrow?" "Yeah," I replied. Mom would laugh at us for needing permission. A pause. Then she sent, "She wouldn't laugh. She'd say, 'It's about damn time.'" I smiled. The door to the balcony was open. Wind carried in the faint scent of rain, cleaner now, washed free. The world felt bigger, in a way I hadn't realized it had shrunk. I carried the necklace to the shelf where Mom's photo sat, her in uniform, head slightly tilted, that slight smile she used only when she knew a truth she wasn't ready to share yet. "Mom," I whispered, "we're doing it. We're becoming the family you hoped we'd be." I placed the necklace inside the new wooden case, closed the lid, and pressed my palm to it. Forgiveness, 2025. A year marked not by endings, but by beginnings. Not by secrets, but by truth. Not by absence, but by return. As I turned off the lights and stepped toward bed, a quiet realization settled in my chest, heavy and sure, like the last puzzle piece clicking into place. Legacies don't disappear. They wait. Patiently. Silently. Steadily. Until someone is ready to pick them up. Tomorrow, Evelyn and I would carry it together. And somewhere, beyond whatever horizon mothers travel to, I hoped she could finally rest. If you believe that secrets and silence shape families just as much as love, subscribe for stories of legacy, revelation, and finding hope beyond heartbreak.